Hello neighbors, John here, your whiskey neighbor. I'd like to talk to you today about a bottle of Weller bourbon. I think this is just the special reserve. Catch you after the break. All right, thanks for joining me. Last week I had friend and cousin Brad over and we went through quite a few different whiskeys, and one of the ones that we opened up, actually I opened this up for the 4th of July, but really just sort of tasted it, and then him and I had a little more of this and other bourbons. So I thought I'll get into sharing some thoughts to any of my fellow Canadians that can actually get Weller Special Reserve in Alberta really quite easily. I know I actually held off buying the Special Reserve because I was, hoping to maybe see a glimpse of the 12-year-old or really any of them. But in terms of Weller, which is from Buffalo Trace Distillery, it's 45%. It's known as a wheated bourbon. It says right on it, I think the original wheated bourbon. But as I understand it now, I didn't dig deep into this. It's just, having seen a couple other clips or read a few other websites. And so I'm not the authority here, but as I understand it, Weller, W.L. Weller was one of the first people to really promote using wheat instead of rye in your bourbon. So it's it's a bourbon. It's made in the U.S. High corn. It has to be over 51%. This is bottled at 45, as I said. I don't know much else about this. I believe, again, I wish I was a better authority here, but I believe that the Weller line is the same mash bill that we would see later in some of the BTAC stuff. Some of the Pappy. It could be that the difference between the mash bill and the distillate and aging here is really cask selection, age, placement in warehouse. But the same people are making this. Now I haven't had any of those sought after, highly priced bourbons. I really haven't. So when I'm coming to this Weller, I'm comparing it to bourbons of similar price point for me, or mash bill with wheated bourbons. The problem is right now, this is the only wheated bourbon I have in my lineup. So it's really tough for me to do a good comparison. So instead, I just want to give you some thoughts of what I think. This bottle in Alberta is a great price. It's $37, $39, somewhere in there. And as I said, every liquor depot I've ever been in has a shelf of this right now, and boxes of it in the back. So it's not hard to find. Very easy and priced okay, right? Price for me, I'll talk more about it in a minute. Let's talk more about the liquid in case you're just turning in. Hey, John, talk about Weller Special. What's it like? So it's a very nice bourbon nose. Sweet, a little bit of caramel, or caramel. On the edge of fruity, not fruity, but a little bit of honey sweetness. Now if I lean in, a little young, a little bit more kind of burning your nose a bit, but not up top. Like you're just wafting that through. I'd say a gentle, approachable, pretty classic bourbon nose. Shouldn't put you off. Diving in. Palate continues the experience. Nice and coating, approachable. Sweetness is more up front. Mid palate, a little bit of bite from the 45. Some spice comes, but it takes a while. When it comes, It's a little bit of baking spices, a little bit of cinnamons. And it's not until the finish it's not until you've had a few sips or the finish that I think the wood character shows through. So it's not, I mean, it's bourbon. The wood is there. Even on the nose it's there, but it doesn't feel really hugged by oak. It's got some fresher wood. Yeah. So I haven't used a lot of words to describe it because I really don't think it's a very complicated bourbon. It's a little burning, a little alcohol, but fairly gentle and well put together. So in this price point, so what are my thoughts? Well, I've had a few sips. Tough to give it a really deep review. I feel like I should be sipping it for about another week before I could talk about it. But I know in comparison to the other bourbons we poured and whatnot, Brad and I, we kept saying, this is nice. This is good. And it is certainly, if you like bourbon and you're just getting into some wheated bourbons, I would definitely start with something like this before you chase after things that are really high priced, because for that $37 to $40 range, it's quite a nice drink. It's quite a nice and I would sip it just like this. I wouldn't worry about. Of course, it would make a great old fashioned or something like that, I'm sure, but nice. If you follow the channel, also rating, I don't know, 3.5. It doesn't. I know I want to give it more, and people probably do give it more, but for me, it's not enough in my palate range to give it a stronger rating. It's good. I'd buy it again. And if you haven't had it, I'd try it. Now, it's interesting. I should be comparing this at minimum to something wheated, right? So I went looking and was, oh yeah, for sure. And I happened to be out of any of the wheated bourbons that I normally keep on hand. So all of the bourbon that I have, and probably the closest neighbor then, if I wasn't going to, compare it to that, then I might even just compare it to Buffalo Trace, because in my neck of the woods, like I said, this is 37 to 40. That's exact price range of Buffalo Trace, which, obviously the same people putting that together, but it has rye in it. And the same as Bulleit. Happen to have a little Bulleit left. I've crushed my Buffalo Trace, but I just thought I'd quickly compare it to Bulleit because it's the same price range. Now, this is not a good comparison because this has got to be, I'm going to say about like 16% wheat, some barley in there, probably in the 70s in corn. And this is going to be similar but higher rye. It could even be as much as 20% rye in here. And rye, yeah, and right away I can pick up the rye from this bottle just immediately. So what that looks like to me is definitely a fruitier, cherrier nose, but also a little spice right away. It's only 43%. Yeah, not as coating. Not as smooth, not as gentle, but a ton more flavor. So it's really tough. Oh yeah, if you like Weller, you might end up hating this, the Bulleit, because the Bulleit, like, right away, just there's so much layers going on, and it's burning all the way down my esophagus. I didn't get that with Weller at all. So if you're just looking at bourbons, or you haven't had a wheated bourbon, I think this would be a better pick. Yeah, definitely. Now coming back to it, yeah, toffee, buttery. Gentle, tasty. Can't catch any smoke. Wood comes later. Yeah, but smooth, even for its age, even though earlier I was like, oh, it's young, whatever. Now that I've had a schlucks of Bulleit, very interesting. So I like the flavor in a Bulleit a lot, and certainly would rate it as high as Weller if I'm trying to give it a point scale, because it would gain some points for some of the flavor and some of that rye bite. But recommending it blind, as I'm often doing on YouTube, if you don't know what to get, that means you haven't had maybe a lot of bourbon or whatever, start with the Weller. Like even in this comparison, this kicks Weller up a little bit. Like I could even almost live at 4 stars, just because approachable, good flavors, easy sipping, and it really quite affordable. I'd love to try their older age expression. I imagine putting this longer, like even just taking this exact expression going to 12 years from probably, I don't know, 6 to 8. That's a pretty big range. Could really go somewhere with this. So I'm glad I had poured that, and I hadn't done a comparison sip till live right now on the camera. And I'm glad I did, because in my mind, I was liking Bulleit quite a bit more. And even on the nose, I'm like, oh yeah. But that sip told me, yeah, okay, hang on. This is a really nice sipping, smooth, creamy, enjoyable bourbon. And I can more easily recommend that to people who are just thinking, should I try it? Thanks, guys, for coming out on the deck. Happy summer. Congrats, Croatia, taking out England. And we'll see you guys next time on the channel. If you like what's going on, please subscribe. It'd be nice to crank up a few numbers, get a few conversations going. Actually, comment too, or as well. I really like the comments. I like the discussions we've got going. You guys take care.